Life Check Yourself with Alexis Leigh. Truth over comfort. Why honesty with yourself changes everything fast. Welcome to another episode of Life Check Yourself. Oh my gosh, before we recorded, I needed to life check myself. I had literal pepper in my teeth. And so here we are. I'm really interested in this conversation that I'm going to have today. You are going to love it. And I think it'll be unexpected how you change some of your thinking. So I have Alexis Leigh. Is it Leigh or Lee, Alexis?
Lee.
Alexis Leigh. She's a writer and advocate for self-healing through unconventional methods, including psychedelics and deep inner work. And she has a background in finance and consulting. And this personal journey she went on led her away from the corporate world and into a life centered around authenticity and transformation. Pain is a Portal to Beauty is her first book, which is a testament to the power of feeling deeply and embracing the unknown. She's a super smart woman. She's got a BS in economics from Wharton at Penn and a JD from Lewis and Clark Law School. When she's not writing at her local coffee shop, she's meditating under the stars on Maui or finding adventure with her partner and their 3 boys. And you live in Oregon. Who says Oregon? The Oregon Trail?
Yeah.
How do you spend a lot of time in Maui too?
I do. I mean, I've for a while there, I was trying to go every month or two. It's very much of course it's extraordinary for all the reasons, but it just was a very healing place for me. So I spent a lot of time
that.
there.
My husband's obsessed.
Yeah.
He would move there if he could.
It's
Okay.
wonderful.
Well, let's just start with this. I mean, your book and you're saying pain is a portal to beauty. So let's just start with the moment in your life where that, portal swung wide open.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a gap between when the pain really kind of came up for me and when I found what it was leading to. So, the moment in time where things started to shift for me was I was walking in the woods in the summer of 2020, and I heard a voice that said, "If you die today, your life will have been a tragedy." And at that moment, I didn't know what that meant, but it really resonated with me, and it really changed, the way I saw everything from that point. And was the start of a long journey of unpacking a lot of pain that I had stored away unknowingly.
Did you feel leading up to that moment, was there like a longing for something different? Did you feel like any discontent that you were just trying to like push away? Or did this just you're just out there minding your own business and all of a sudden, bam?
No, I mean, I think certainly I wished things were different in ways. I mean, I had all of the things that I thought you could want. And I had, I was married, I had a good career, I had a healthy son, friends, family. I mean, I had all of the categories were there. But I did want more love and more meaning. I just kind of thought you shouldn't want that. There was very much the messaging that I took in was that you should be grateful for what you have.
Right.
So I was trying to be grateful for what I had, and I was trying to, make do with what I had. And that voice, that moment really gave me the freedom to say, no, let's look at this differently. This isn't what you should be grateful for. There's more here.
Yeah. I think we're in like an epidemic of settling, Yeah. I think that there's so many things that are big and confusing and chaotic that so many women are like, I should just, hunker down and be happy for what I have. And I just think hearing your story and hearing stories like this, I just want women who are listening to, wake up. So why did you trust that message enough to change your life? And how did you even know it was significant at that time?
Well, I think, again, it came from within me. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who it was. And it took me a long time to kind of really realize it was just my own knowing. It was my own intuition that was trying to get me to wake up. But because it was true, it's like you can question things, but when something really feels true, then there's no questioning. It's just like, it is true that I'm deeply sad. It is true that I'm deeply lonely. And that was a moment where I wasn't, I was by myself and with this voice, and I wasn't having to be anything for anybody else at that moment. Right. So I got to just really look at it and say, yeah, that is the truest thing of my experience right now, is that I'm not happy, is that if I died today, it would have been a very sad and lonely life. And I think it's really scary to own up to that. You know, if you're really sad and you're really lonely and you have a life that you don't want to let go of, it's hard to be honest about that. And like you were saying with the settling, I think there's so much out there that, you know, other people have it worse, so you should be okay with where you are. And I think that's, you know, that framework is based on an idea of that if you're happier, it makes someone else sadder somehow. Like, you know, if you reach for what you need, it'll somehow hurt somebody else, versus what I've found is the more I have, you know, accepted myself and pursued what I wanted, the more love I have to actually share with others, the more, you know, it creates more value and more love, the more I can take care of myself.
Yeah. Well, there's like three things I wanted to say. One is that when you were talking about your moment, after my ski accident, someone said to me, so I feel like divine spoke through this person who said, you know, you broke your sacrum in 7 places, and your sacrum is your foundation of your body because you've built your foundation of your life on a broken foundation and you have to rebuild it. And I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, like there's that feeling you get that you're just like, oh, yes, that is exactly it. Yes. I just didn't know it. So I totally resonate with that. And then the other thing that I think is so interesting, what you said, and I hear people talk about it all the time, so I'd love your take on it. When we decide, like, I'm going to make a change in my life, I am going to pursue something that is meaningful to me, or I'm going to stop settling, and you do the work, get through the messy middle, and you're in the other side. I mean, did you have an experience where other people were uncomfortable by you changing or not settling? Or once you went through the process, the people in your life were just on board?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that I was so, it's hard to argue, you know, when somebody really is so desperately sad and lonely, what's somebody else going to say? You should stay there. You know, I mean, so maybe yes, maybe in certain circumstances that would be true. And in my life, I just had people who were more supportive of the transformation. I mean, I think the biggest piece for me was letting go of my marriage. And so that was certainly something that my co-parent and I really spent some time with. Of course, we tried to make it work, and we were really thoughtful about whether it was time to move on. And ultimately we decided that for us. But otherwise, people wanted me to find my way. You know, I did have encouraging people in my life. And so like one of the things we might talk about at some point is that I did psychedelic journeys, for example, and I'm from Texas and my mother was addicted to drugs. I mean, there's all these reasons why you might think that people would not be supportive, but the people in my life, you know, I mean, first of all, I think they also trusted me to know what was right for me. It's not like I was out there recklessly doing stuff. Not that that's necessarily wrong. Sometimes we got to be, you know,
right. You got to get to where you're going somehow.
Right. But I think there was an element of, well, two things I would say. I think there's an element of people trusted me. They wanted the best for me, but also it was a really alone process for me. You know, I really lost a lot of people in my life during that time. And many have come back. We've come back together in a different way. But it was a time for me to be alone. And so I actually didn't probably ask for a lot of opinions about this stuff. I was going to do it because for me, having this background with my mother's kind of tragic demise and this legacy of tragedy in my family, I had to change my life for my son. I mean, for myself as well. But I was like, there's this legacy that's flowing from our family, and I don't want that for my son. And so I actually don't care what anybody else thinks. I'm going to go do what's right for me and my kid. And that's, you know, so maybe I didn't ask people's opinions very much.
Yeah. Well, I think what you say is really interesting. I mean, when I went through my transformation early on, I remember like, I don't think I can do it for myself. So I had to do it for my daughters, because I was like, they cannot have this experience of themselves and lives. And they were really, really young at the time. But what I think is true is that when you go through that transformation, sometimes you do have to let go of things that are creating the illusion of safety. Mm-hmm. But it's just comfortable pain. So I'm curious. So the next week, so you had the moment in the woods. What did you do the next week that made it real? Is that when you sort of like started addressing your marriage or your job? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, it was slow. It was a slow kind of taking it in. It just was it was just kind of like a door opened, and then I could start to feel around and see what this new space would be like. And so it was that, the next time I had a conversation with my husband at the time, I probably had less patience. I was like, no, I've seen the truth of my life. I've seen that my life is a tragedy. I can't keep going in the same direction and expect that to change. So I think I probably became, just more, committed in the places where maybe I was trying to make change before. I didn't really feel like, I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I was able to, if I should, because I should be grateful, all of those things. This just gave it a whole new lens that said, no, it's not working. I mean, to hear that your life is a tragedy, it's like everything's not working. That's not like your life needs a little tweaking. That's like throw it in the trash, right? So for me, it was like everything now is questioned. And if I don't feel good about something, I'm going to go there and say what needs to change. And so certainly with my marriage, it was, let's get real about this. Let's get real about what's going to change and what's not. Let's be, respectful of each other and where we are. And how can I just somehow I knew in that time that I needed to start digging up my childhood pain. So that was really the first thing that happened. Was there was something in me that knew I need to start going for sad walks. Like I need to start going, listening to sad music and crying. And so, I was already in therapy, so I'm sure I've continued therapy, but it was like, there was this new element of like, I need to go sit with my sadness. Like I have a sad life and I need to really get to know it. So that's really what the next phase was for me.
Yes. And the other piece of this is I talk a lot about what I call time denial. And that's what happened. You got hit with that, right? Like, hey, if it were over, like, this is what it would be, right? Yeah. And when we're just like going on like someday, one day, or for me, when it was like, wow, my mom died at 64, I'm 55. Like if I had 9 more years to go, is this how I want to spend it? Right. And I want to really anchor to that and bring it up for those of you who are listening, because I know that for me, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Alexis, like we don't want a tragedy or we don't want some like deep, dark thing to be the thing that inspires you to have the life that you want. That's why this show is here. That's why you and I are both doing the work that we're doing. So let me ask you about your path. So you had this very prestigious path, Wharton Law School of Finance. You're doing therapy. You're being with your sadness. So there are these, I talk about like, we have to let go of our identity, the who we think we are in the world. And I'm just curious. So for you, what was that first identity that you had to retire to start to step in to like, who is the real Alexis in the world?
Well, I think a big one was getting divorced. It's just like I was always focused on that 50% statistic, and I don't know what it is now, but the high statistic of divorce. And I never wanted to be in that party. I didn't want to hurt my kid. You hear it's terrible for your children. And I loved my husband. I didn't want that. And so for me, that was the biggest first thing, was to let go of my marriage. And I had friends who would say, you'll make friends with you when your kid gets to kindergarten, then you're going to make friends with their friends' parents. Like that's when actually like these social networks start. Well, as soon as my kid gets to kindergarten, I get a divorce. So I was like, dang it, so there are just all these things that I was prepared to be married forever and grow old with my ex-husband. And so it was really letting go of that. And I think that's part of why it was so hard, is that I did love him so much. And I think he's a wonderful person. So it was really a confusing choice to walk away from it. But at the time, I think neither of us knew what else to do. And now we're both doing really well. The story ends well, and I think divorce is less scary than I thought it was. Like there's a lot of goodness that I found certainly through this whole process. But that was the big one for me, was letting go of my marriage.
Yeah, I totally relate to that too. My kids were really young. And so I felt like I had like a disease called divorce that was contagious. And so all those parents that you're talking about, they were like, ooh, we don't want that to happen. Flash forward 25 years, probably like 70% of those people ended up getting divorced. I was a pioneer. What's interesting also is this idea that we have these preconceived ideas of like what it's going to be, right? You're like, I'm not going to be in that, statistic, and I'm going to be with this person. And it's so much harder when the person isn't like a raving jerk, like it's hard. You're like, wait a minute, like, am I asking for too much? Am I just having like the grass is greener syndrome?
Yeah.
Did your body know it before your brain would admit it? Were there these things that you felt this like body connection of like, ooh, this isn't right, or this is the right path before your brain could catch up? Did that happen after the walk in the woods?
Yeah. I mean, I think the walk in the woods, again, I think that was my body. My brain couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
My body, now I think my body was saying, hey, you've got to look at this. And certainly I think throughout this whole process since then has been, my body is so brilliant and my brain tries so hard to be in charge. And my brain has, sometimes the logic of my brain actually has helped me be like, oh, these two things are unequal. Why are they unequal? Let's look at that. So there are times when my brain really is great, but most of the time my body is like, I know this, and you can try to figure it out, or you can shut down. You can that's what the guidance I've gotten over and over is stop the thinking brain. Our bodies are guided, are guiding us. So, even with, I ultimately got into a new relationship after my divorce, and my body was like, this is it. And my brain was like, what the hell? Not this guy. And so I very much had that push and pull with my body and my brain, but my body was, has been right. About, we can go into all the nuances of that. Sometimes my body leads me to things that are actually really painful because I need to re-experience that pain to cope, to feel it and let it move on. So it's not always that my body leads me to super fun things, but it does lead me wisely to what I need to learn.
Great segue to my next question, because I know in your book you're writing about feeling deeply as the doorway to meaning. And so we're talking about body, and then we're talking about feeling feelings. And I feel there's so many listeners out here who tell me they have a hard time feeling their feelings. And I'm curious how you think about that, because there's the avoiding, right? Like I know, like you're talking about avoiding a lot of different things and you finally let it speak. What are the ways in which we can start to access those emotions, even if we have a story that like it's hard for us or we can't do it?
Yeah, it is such a muscle to develop. And I think that I kind of plunged into the deep end with the menacing voice in the woods and later on with psychedelics. But for me, there's so much, our bodies protect us from these feelings when we're not ready to look at them. So my body dissociated from feeling and numbed me completely when my mom went away when I was young. And it has taken time to try to figure out how to wake up to that again. And part of it is that, to numb us, our bodies, we go to food and we go to wine and we go to screens. We do all these things to cope. And it's all so widely accepted that we don't even necessarily realize that these coping mechanisms are keeping us from something that's painful. So for me, if I want to, whenever you go to like the deeper level feeling, so for me, that's quite subtle now, but for others, it might be kind of surface level. Even getting past that part is hard. For me, it's about finding quiet. So it's about what can you turn off that may be a coping mechanism? You don't know, but can you take the coping mechanisms off the table and just see what starts to come up for you? And what's interesting to me is I think what I would have thought is like, okay, I'll take that off and then I'll go have a separate process and listen for these emotions. But actually it's just taking the coping mechanism off the table and immediately I'm going to get pissed or scared or panicked or frustrated. Like I'll immediately have an emotional response to removing the coping mechanism, and just paying attention to that first response, just being sweet and present with that first response is the start of this. So it's not about how can I go from not feeling anything to feeling everything. It's about how can I go from not feeling anything to even recognizing what is a feeling, to feeling the sensation in my body. When I do just one little thing, I say to myself, okay, I'm going to fast today, for example. And part of me goes, fuck you, I don't want to fast.
Right.
and that emotion is what needs to be seen. That's the opportunity, is to see that, right? You might say, oh no, I need to go grieve my mom. Well, no, actually there's anger coming up. So I'm going to come over here and sit with this anger. So whatever the emotional reaction is, whether it's to your own taking coping mechanisms off the table, or it's whether, your neighbor pissed you off, or whether you got sad because a friend didn't call you back. I mean, all of those things, they may seem like a small thing right now, but actually if you sit with it, it can lead you to much deeper experiences that are really wanting your attention, that really will, it'll feel really good to kind of let those things move through you.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much because I think so many of us have these like little reactions all day long, myself included, and it's just easy to discount them or be like, it's fine, whatever, right? But all of those experiences we're having, if we like decide to use them as like, God, why do I keep reacting this way to this thing? Then you go, oh, well, that's like a portal, like using your words.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. You talk about healing tears from looping tears. And so if you could explain that and then talk about like what are some body cues you can use when you're slipping into the looping tears, the rumination, the victim thinking.
Healing tears from looping tears. I don't know that phrasing.
Well, just like, you said, I had to go be with my sadness and cry. Right. And so there's like the healing stuff, but then there's the just pour me raw, right? Like a reaction to something. So I'm just curious if you have a way to distinguish those. And then how do you get off of rumination and into actually doing the healing work?
Well, I think for me, everything for me has been pretty incremental. I think we can all kind of wake up to things at different speeds, but for me, it's like step by step. And so I think for me, it is a really honoring wherever you are. And so if you're in a place of really feeling victim, and now you're hearing that language about victim, about the looping, then you might say, okay, I'm noticing this, and I'm noticing that that I'm really not wanting to move off of it. So for me, it's really kind of a beautiful way to deal with this stuff is not to say, oh, look, there I go being a victim again. And there's this judgment, right? And and first of all, if I say that, oh, there I go being a victim again, then I can see that voice and go, oh gosh, listen to that critical part of me. That's the thing, like every step I get to say, oh, I noticed that. So as soon as you notice that you're feeling victim, then you can be sweet to the part that's feeling victim. And as soon as you notice yourself being critical of your being victim, you can be sweet to the part of you that's feeling critical. All of these are pieces of us that are trying to protect us. And it may not be serving us anymore. And that's why we're waking up to it. We're saying, oh, I noticed these patterns. It's not working out well in my relationship. So I want to start paying attention to this. But none of it for me has to ultimate lands in judgment. It all is like, oh, this is an important part that's trying to get my attention. So there's the victim part that really wants to say, no, things really sucked. And you go, I'm sorry, maybe I moved on too quick. I, Alexis, can give my little part love for how hard that was. And then as soon as that part feels really understood, then maybe they're out of the victim, right? Like then that gets to move through. And again, if there's a part that's judgmental of you for not being more healed and not doing this better, you can say, oh, I really hear that you wish we were further along. I get that, right? And so it's not that I have to be further along, but I get to be sweet to the part that wishes that I were. That's okay. We get to, it's like we get to be there every step of the way. We get to be where we are, and we can just be really sweet because these are young parts of ourselves, and they deserve, they are innocent. Truly, everybody's doing the best they can. We're all doing the best we can. And these are parts of ourselves that are saying, can you please honor where I am instead of leaving me, right? Like, don't go listen to some person who wrote a book who says that I should be more healed than I am. Can I just be where I am? And the truth is that's where we are. That's where the only place we can be. And as soon as we acknowledge where we are, then things start to move on their own. Yeah. But it's this restriction, like I should be something else, and getting stuck there that actually does make us stuck.
Yeah, I think exactly. And I think that's where people get so frustrated, or where they don't ask for help, or they're, I've read the book, I have the t-shirt, I've gone to therapy for 27 years. Like I should, be over this by now. And it's like, that's exactly the entryway to actually where you can start doing work in a different way, using these approaches that you're talking about. Yeah. Okay. So in your book, it's this beautiful memoir, you're talking about how psychedelics, helped you in your healing. And I'm curious, like, how did that experience help you and kind of reframe the story you were telling yourself about your life and help you move forward from that moment in the woods?
Well, really, psychedelics the idea is that the medicine shows us what we need to see. And so people can have very different experiences. And mine were a lot of experiences about pain. Like it was a lot of, you have more pain to do. You have more pain to unpack. Here's a moment when you were a kid that you didn't really realize how tender that made you feel. Like just over and over and over for me was helping me excavate all of this pain that I had stored so expertly away. So for me, it was, I feel like just the overarching message was, if I can go in and psychedelics help you sit with the pain, right? You have a companion. It's so much easier to have a companion there with you. And it's a companion that doesn't have their own lens. It's not a therapist who has their own trauma that they're bringing to the situation. And I was helped so greatly by therapists, but I'm just saying there's kind of complete trust with these medicines because they're just there showing you your own wisdom. And so the medicine would take me to these places, help me unpack things, and then I would feel lighter afterward. And I also, the medicine taught me how to do that for myself. And so what I think I learned from all of that is, number one, my body was filled to the brim with pain. And so as you were talking early on about our body versus our brain, I couldn't access my body's wisdom because I was numbed to it because of all of the pain. So psychedelics helped me unpack that pain so that then I could access my own wisdom. And so now I can lead myself in my life in a way that I couldn't before. Before I would have been like, who has the answer and how do I fix my life? Now I know that I can trust myself to know those things and to guide myself through experiences. But I think the other piece is that by going toward my pain, but kind of back to the victimhood piece.
Yeah.
By sitting with my pain, I now feel so strong. Like I know how powerful I am in a way that when I was scared of my own pain, I felt very weak. And so that's really this fantastic transformation that I would wish for everybody, that I no longer feel like the world's out to get me, like I can't respond. I now know, because I've sat with such really terrifying, monstrous pain, I can handle anything. And so when something comes at me, I don't need to brace against it or avoid it. I can take whatever it is and let it wash over me. And it doesn't, right? Because I am bigger than that. Like I've started doing this thing where it's like, okay, if this thing happens, or if the opposite thing happens, I am the same. It is the same. Like no matter what happens, which starts to help you realize, oh, you're bigger than outcome. You're bigger than what happens in the world. And it's quite extraordinary after feeling like a victim for my whole life.
Yeah, it's like I love the way you're saying that, because it's like the articulation of, like, I call it like radical faith, right? Like whatever it is, I'm who I am stays unchanged, right? Because I'm not making meaning of a result, or I'm not attached to that result. Right. I'm so curious. So what was more surprising to you? What came up during your journey, the medicine journey, or what changed, or how you changed in the weeks after?
Sorry, is your question which one, either in the journey or after the journey?
Well, I'm just, what surprised you more? Like what came up like while you were there and you were seeing all these things, or was it like how you changed? I'm just curious, like what was more surprising, or what shocked you the most, or what changed you the most?
I feel like, so I worked with 3 different medicines. The first one was MDMA, then was psilocybin, and I worked the longest with ayahuasca. And ayahuasca was I had the deepest relationship with that one. And really in those experiences, you kind of like, I could be grieving for hours, or I could be having conversations with the medicine, or I could have, my brain is totally out of the picture and there's just, my body is, disappeared, and the medicine's doing all sorts of stuff that I can't quite understand. So there were takeaways from every journey, but then there were, months, a year later, you are still working through what those ceremonies meant. And there were several where I had a real clear vision about what I saw on that journey, and then life unfolded afterward, and it was totally not what I expected, oftentimes more painful than what I was hoping for. But then the revelation, which came months later after the ceremony, was some mind-blowing new way of seeing myself in the world. And so for me, we always left those ceremonies. I mean, we go around and share after the ayahuasca, and everyone, just like, that was the most profound experience of my life. That was the most profound experience. I mean, it's like everybody's saying the same thing, because we all were so moved by it. But then in the integration of it, it was so much bigger than I could understand. So yes, it's the integration of it where,
yeah.
I mean, like one of the ones, for example, I have this in my epilogue. I had this ceremony where I said to something in me said, I'm tired of being sad about you, to my mom. And so I thought, oh my gosh, the lesson is that if I'm always grieving, then I can't go do the good I want to do in the world if I'm filled with pain. And so I thought, maybe I'm done grieving. Well, the next night's ceremony, I go to the depths of my pain. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not done yet. But the idea was like, if I clear out enough pain, then I can go make magic in the world, which is what I want to do. So it was this really beautiful thing. And then I went and kind of just returned to normal life afterwards. So it felt like a little bit like I fell off the wagon, like I was just being a human and not the spiritual being. But then I get to the next ceremony months and months later and realize that all of that work that I was doing to sell my house and that I was exhausted and depleted and all that was actually clearing out another layer of grief about my marriage, because I sold our home. And for me, I felt like I was just tired and resentful and all these things. And it's like, no, it was actually this much deeper thing. So I felt very human, like I wasn't doing spiritual work, but in fact, I was doing all of this work to clear out another layer so that I could then be more of an empty vessel. So it's fascinating to me, because I go again with a certain lens from the ceremony, and then afterward it's something completely different, but incredibly meaningful.
And I think this really speaks to the power of intention, right? And then that life will always life, right? Like at you, so to speak. And that's where the teaching is. And so being curious and open, it sounds like this started with a statement that you just kept turning into different questions of asking yourself and being brave. To really look at them.
Yeah. And like you said with your kids, being brave, and also just this is what was going to happen. I'm not going to give up on my kid and on me. So I will turn over every stone. I'll keep going with this to find more love and to find more joy and peace in this life.
Oh, I love this. About, I don't know, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember. But when I was married to my ex, we used to go to Hawaii, and then we got divorced. He would take them for a week, and then I would take them for a week when they were younger. And my kids, I think they were in high school, maybe. Anyway, and they went to his week, and then we met up. We were walking on the beach, and they looked at me, and they were like, thank God you got a divorce. They were like, I totally get it. You guys couldn't be any more different. Like, thank you. I'm so happy that you did that for yourself and for us. And, when you're in the beginning of it and your kid's like little and you're just like, they have to take a suitcase back and forth, and they, and like which weekend, which holidays, Hanukkah and Christmas, you're like, ugh, I did this to them. So I think it's like this beautiful unfolding of trusting, like you said, you're really trusting the process and the journey that you're on, that it's unfolding right for you, for your new relationship, ultimately for your son, and the ripple effect, right? Like your pain created this beautiful ripple effect that you're creating through this, through your book. So it's just it's so beautiful. I'm curious, do you have because you're working, you have all these things going on in your life. You can't take the time to go do a medicine journey all the time. So now that you can do these inquisitions for yourself, do you have like a short truth ritual, or when you're feeling in fear, or when time is short, what are you doing these days to kind of continue to work through your process as in the real world?
Yeah. And I will just note that I kind of thought that I would get to do medicine work forever. And the last time I went, which was in February, the medicine told me that I didn't need to come back. And so I actually was quite devastated about that, because it was so meaningful, but it also was, I was getting kicked out of the nest. The medicine's message was, you won't be able to access all of you if you continue to look outside yourself. And I won't say that about anyone's journey but mine right now, but it has been a challenge to me to now say, okay, how can I go create these big experiences? How can I go inward like the medicine has shown me to do? So what I do, because I still have stuff that I'm unpacking, is that if I have a strong feeling, and it can be, I sent a book to a school teacher of mine that was really a lovely presence in my life when I was young. And she was really sweet about the book, but she also told me that I shouldn't curse. And I was so pissed.
That's so funny.
And it's so funny. And also I was really triggered by it. And so it's like these things that seem like it's like not that big a deal, but it really frustrated me and kind of in a continuing way. So what I do is I do the internal family systems, the parts work.
Yep.
And I'll sit down with my computer and I'll actually just write a conversation between the higher adult me and that part. And I'll say, hey, you're really frustrated about this. Like, is there a time when you felt like this before? And then the part will start to, will give me a response and then I'll respond back. So for me, that's what I do, is that I sit down and I journal with the emotion, the part, whatever you want to call it, the energy. And ultimately I find my way, and that part is, kind of comes with its own energy. And I'll find my way to this bottom line. Holy moly, I didn't know that was there. Something that I believed as a kid that was just so scary that I stored it away. So for me, I take every emotion that I feel that doesn't just kind of pass on its own, and I journal with my part to really kind of try to understand, to give that part love and understand what they're trying to teach me.
That's so brilliant. So I'm curious, in your book, Pain is a Portal to Beauty, if you were to say like a single sentence from the book that you hope lives on, like that readers really hold on to and as part of that ripple effect, do you have one or a part of the book?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I have the book right here. This book came through me. So much of this was kind of written, and I got to kind of be the recipient of it, which is quite wonderful. But one of the sentences that gets me is, I have this on the back of my hardcover, but it says, I wonder how many are living tragic lives like the one I lived for so long, with uncovered gifts, with a deficiency of love, with resignation that this is all there is, rather than trusting their resistance. There has to be more. And there's more than that, but there's this sentence of there has to be more, that we all think there has to be more. But again, back to the settling, we don't get to have it. And what I've realized is, oh my God, there's more. So if people can trust their resistance, that, we all know this. It's just giving yourself the freedom to actually feel it and go for it.
Oh, I love that. Do you think there's a page or a section or a part of the book that people who have read it like dog ear the most? And I'm curious, like, why do you think like people are really resonating with that part?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know, because I had two different editors that I worked with, and it was so fascinating to me because they would read the same chapter and they would underline underline different things that spoke to them. So I don't know, it's a page turner kind of book. People say they read it in one sitting. That's the most common thing that I get, is people can't put it down. So I think that there's just I don't know. There's a lot of nuggets in there, and it's the kind of essay form where you're not having to wait so long to get to that nugget. You get to have each chapter has its own little, gentle, loving bomb in it that invites people to step through and find their own truths. So, I don't know, but there's a love story in there that, that's kind of fun. So it's just all quite wonderful.
I love it. I am so happy that you're here. Everyone, we're going to have a link to the show notes. Pain is a Portal to Beauty, Stunning Discoveries After Lost, Psychedelics, and Feeling It All. And I am so here on this planet to promote a memoir. They're so hard to get out in the world. And they're so important. And this kind of writing is beautiful. And also, I think from our conversation today, anyone who's listening, like, there's parts of all of us in each of these little parts of your life, as a parent, as a professional, as someone who's going through divorce, like identity, parents who let you down, whatever degree that happened. And so I really hope everyone is able to go check this book out and help themselves in a way that's also super fun, because you can't put it down. I think, ladies, there's so many nuggets and takeaways and Alexis-isms in this episode. So make sure you rewind, listen again, and definitely share it with a friend if you know someone who's struggling. Because remember, always and in always, it's your responsibility to life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Listen, if you're feeling stuck, I want you to know you're not alone, and you don't have to settle for it.
I've created a free quiz to help you pinpoint what's draining your energy and exactly how you can fix it. So head over to decodeyourdestinyquiz.com and take the 60-second quiz right now. That's decodeyourdestinyquiz.com. And if you're ready to dive deeper, you can book a free no-obligation consultation at marnibattista.com/private coaching. That's Marni, M-A-R-N-I, Battista, B-A-T-T-I-S, as in Sam, T-A.com/private coaching, all one word. Let's take the first step to creating a life you love on your terms. I'm Marni, and I'll see you next time.